welcome to our event today, our WAPSEP C online learning event with Iguaraya Morales, relationship, empathy and cultural differences. Igua, a warm welcome to online events. It's great to have you here.
Well, John, thank you. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to share with all of you my research findings, my ideas, and experiences about what has been working with the person-centered approach in therapy and also in research. And I really would like to emphasize what we think is coming from the cultural differences, just for the fact that we belong to a specific set of values and ways of thinking and feelings and uh, moving on.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had some time ourselves to kind of chat about those concepts. It feels really interesting and exciting to think. Yeah, so yeah, great. And I'm sure everyone who's listening live online, a warm welcome to you as well. We'll be interested to hear about your research and to have some time just to think some of these questions through, some of the things you've learned, some of the other questions that your research has thrown up.
Yeah.
And both of us can see the chat room. You can see it on your screen. I can too.
Yes.
And if anyone's struggling to get in the chat room, Sandra's there taking care of everyone. Hello, Sandra. There's just a little blue button at the bottom right-hand corner of the online events website. If anyone is struggling, click on the button. You'll get straight through to Sandra and she can give you some help. And I'm really excited about today because, I mean, we've started in English, but Igor, you're also going to make your responses in Spanish as well.
Yes. Quisiera darle la bienvenida a todas las personas que en este momento están atendiendo también nuestro evento. Es para mí, como una persona latinoamericana, una meta hacer que el enfoque centrado en la persona llegue a todos nosotros, especialmente a aquellas personas que no hablan inglés, y que esto no sea una, sino que las personas que hablamos español podamos tener también la oportunidad de ser incluidos y de estar muy cerca del desarrollo de este enfoque. Así que para mí de verdad es un honor compartir con ustedes, y a medida que yo vaya conversando en inglés, voy a hacer una traducción simultánea de lo que estemos conversando de manera tal de que esto también esté disponible para ustedes. Bienvenidos. So, I just welcomed the rest of the people who don't know how to speak English, but they will have also the opportunity to understand and have the ideas that we are going to be sharing this evening.
Oh, that's lovely. That sounded like a really warm welcome.
Well, that's one of my goals as being part of the board, getting closer the World Association to the Spanish speaking people.
Yes, yeah. So it'd be really great to locate you in that way. You're on the board of the World Association, um, and you've been a real, I guess you are the driving force but behind these events, Igua. So you very modestly kind of filled the space in tonight, and I'm so glad that you're here and you've gathered lots of people together for this program. So
Yeah.
and the events are not dominated by English. That's the yeah. It feels really important to to respond in whatever language we use.
Yeah.
And because you can see the chat room, it's really important. If anyone wants to type in Spanish,
Yeah.
you will see that and you will respond in Spanish, and then you kind of translate for us in English, and we'll kind of do it the other way too. If we see some comments in English,
Yes.
then we'll respond and you'll translate for Spanish, which is really exciting, I think.
Mhm. Yes, I'll be uh, watching the the chat room and see if any question in Spanish comes out, and so I will be able to answer it. So si quieren hacer una pregunta en español por el chat room, lo pueden hacer porque yo voy a estar haciéndole seguimiento al chat room y cuando vea algo en español, yo lo voy a responder. ¿Ok?
Great. Yes, and we've allowed a little bit extra time. We usually do 60 minutes in the events, but we've got 90 minutes today, just to give us time, I guess, for being in those different languages. And yeah, so we really appreciate that extra time, Igwa. That's very
It's fine.
generous.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And I think we've already got a response in the chat room in Spanish. Can you see that, Igwa?
Yes, someone is saying I understand Spanish too. So this person won't have any problem handling both languages.
Great.
So fine.
Oh, fab. Oh, yeah, we're getting some more responses in Spanish, which is fab. And of course, if anybody has a sense of Sandra and I, we're big fans of Twitter and Facebook. So if you're on the social networks right now, and if you want to let people know that we're live and that we're in Spanish and in English, please do invite them into the experience and into the chat room. We'd love to have them. Yeah, great. Igwa, it's great to get a sense of your role within the World Association, that you're on the board and you're doing a number of things that we've listed on the event page, and particularly with these online events, which is
Yeah.
really exciting. And would it be okay to also locate you geographically? Could you give us a sense of where you are?
Well, geographically, I'm in Venezuela, which is at the northern part of South America. We speak Spanish mainly, and well, we have a strong influence of Spain because we were discovered by Spaniards.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So that the Spanish language and I guess culture has had a big influence that we will go on
yeah,
to talk about, I guess. And I think that's one of the exciting things about these events. I mean, we're
but
sep- yeah.
even though we have excuse me, even though
Mhm.
we were discovered by Spaniards, we are in fact a big mixture of Europeans, Africans, and native people.
Mm, mm.
So we are like a melting pot.
Yes, a real diversity in the culture.
Yes,
Mm.
yes. Well, now we have our own identity, and our identity is the mixture of these three things. That
Yeah, yeah. So we'll kind of come to that, and that's where we're going. Before we do, could you tell us a little bit about um, the work that you do in Venezuela? Would that be okay to ask you about that?
well, in terms of the person-centered approach,
Hmm.
I I work for the state government prevention program, and there I work with a parenting school. And also, I have created a program, a workshop that is called Becoming a Person. My goal there is just helping people to get more in contact to with their power, their inner power, and their own resources and their possibilities. It has been researched and found that Venezuelan people have an external locus of control. And it means that we are just waiting for everybody else to be responsible for things. And everybody's mainly waiting for what the government is can give you or can help you with, but we are falling in this globalization time. We're just falling behind, and we are depending more and more from the government and the oil economy, instead of developing ourselves as powerful people, willing and able to reach higher standards and more powerful and findings, better science, in quality of life, maybe.
Mm. Yeah. So,
So,
what a powerful name for a workshop, becoming a person. Which, if
well,
someone isn't in the person-centered approach, I mean, that's one of Carl Rogers' seminal texts, isn't it? The
well,
title. So,
certainly it was not very creative,
yeah.
but I think that my sense was that I needed to transmit my willingness to help people to become persons,
Mm.
so powerful people. So it's not any kind of persons or people. It's becoming a person with a capital P.
Mm. Yes. Yes. So you're not trying to turn people into a certain kind of person. You don't have someone in mind that people going through the workshop should turn into.
Yes. And the other side of the kind of my work, the kind of work that I do, I work on research. And one of the things that I was thinking and considering for probably 6, 7 years ago has been the fact that empathy is very powerful, and empathy probably is universal. But the way you reach empathy is different depending on the culture. For example, we have found out that in Venezuela, we don't perceive ourselves as individuals. We always perceive ourselves as in relationship, in dash relationship, which means that it's kind of a relational identity. So when Rogers wrote and talked about his relationship and empathy idea, he, I think he thought about empathy and relationship from a modern paradigm, and not, and in the modern paradigm, uh, people are considered individuals,
Mm.
separate beings. But in our culture, we don't perceive ourselves like that. And as a consequence, empathy is not cannot be reached in the same probably style and ways that Rogers has described, because in order for you to be really, really empathic with someone with a Venezuelan client in therapy, you will need to take into consideration that the person is not perceiving her or himself as a separate being, but someone that is in relationship someone else, or even with you as his or her therapist.
Mm. Yeah.
And that makes things to me different, even though uh, the empathical process is, of course, from the person-centered perspective and point of view, uh, well, getting yourself in the place of the other person, uh, you really won't be able to understand that person if you don't share the same kind of experience and ways of living that the people that come to your office have.
Mm.
Because I guess what I'm trying to explain is that we are beyond phenomenology. We are ahead what is really a phenomenological issue regarding empathy. It's more it's more the living experience that you share and that you need to share with someone that you have as a client just because of you share the same culture,
Mm.
values, and ideas.
Mm.
Um, Another example, if I want to go a little bit more beyond to explain myself a little bit much better, um, we, it has been kind of anthropological research through life storytelling techniques that we have the mother figure. For example, in order to define family, we don't define family as mother, father, daughters, and sons. No, our family system is more kind of, it's not a matriarchate, but it's mother centered. Everything is goes around the mother figure, even if the father is he's just a satellite. And what is that the mother has the power, and the father comes, uh, bring the kids, and then he leaves, and the mother stays by herself with the daughters and the sons. And then the mother finds another father, have more kids, and probably this man will go away again. And that's how our episteme is.
Mm.
And
Like there
this
isn't
is,
the expectation that the father stays, that he's like a necessary part of the family, or
well, this is not something that is conscious.
mm.
This
Okay.
is embedded in the culture.
Mm.
And in a research that I did a long time ago as part of my dissertation, PhD dissertation, I made and translated, transcribed some interviews where all, of course, not having this father figure leaves you an empty space,
Mm.
because we don't want to say and we don't want to mean that this is not important.
Mm.
It is important. The father figure is important. I mean, everybody wants to have a father at home. It's just like any other family. But the thing is that um, when I interview the clients that had male therapists, they accepted that in their very deep inside, they were expecting to find a father figure in this therapist.
Mm. Okay.
So this is something that is not written in the books as the way you can work on the person-centered approach, but that's the way it is in our culture.
Yeah. So it'd be really important for the therapist to be aware that that could be happening, that it is happening with a client.
Yes. So I'm going to take my time to translate now because I've been talking in English for quite long, and so
Thank you, Igwe.
okay. Bueno, no estoy en este momento leyendo ninguna pregunta en español, pero sí voy a traducir lo que he estado hablando en español. Lo que he estado diciendo es que la empatía es un proceso universal y muy poderoso en terapia. Sin embargo, la investigación es muy importante e incluso no ha sido una investigación netamente desde el punto de vista clínico, sino más bien antropológico. Y en esta investigación antropológica a través de algunas historias de vida, hemos podido contactar, por ejemplo, que el venezolano es alguien que se percibe a sí mismo no como un individuo aislado, como un ente, sino como una persona que está en relación. Y no es en separado relación, sino en rayita relación. Es decir, es como que si la identidad del venezolano es solamente a través de estar relacionado con alguien. Por supuesto, todos estos factores van a influir en la manera en cómo la empatía es hecha y cómo la relación terapéutica es mejor y más efectivamente hecha. Porque no es lo mismo, Rogers cuando habló de empatía y de relación, pensaba en el paradigma de la modernidad y pensaba, por supuesto, en un individuo que se percibe a sí mismo como un ser individual. Eh, pero I'm just reading a question, I'm going to answer that question. Estoy leyendo una pregunta, ya la respondo en español. Pero entonces, estas investigaciones son importantes porque no es lo mismo relacionarse y tratar de ser empático con alguien que se percibe a sí mismo como un individuo como con alguien que se percibe a sí mismo en relación con alguien. Y eso no tiene que ver nada con el proceso psicoterapéutico o con un problema de contratransferencia y transferencia. Eso solo tiene que ver con el hecho de que esa es la manera en cómo está planteada la episteme del venezolano y que no es una cosa que es consciente, es algo que está en nuestra cultura y forma parte de nosotros. Para explicar esto mejor, le explicaba a John y a los demás que, por ejemplo, en nuestra cultura, la madre es el centro de todo. No tenemos una familia matriarcal, pero tenemos una familia matricentrada. Es decir, el padre puede estar presente, pero es solamente un satélite, él no importa. Y el padre viene, se une con la madre, le deja a los hijos, al cabo de un tiempo el padre se va, la madre se queda con los hijos, luego viene otro padre, no otro esposo, que hace hijos y más adelante la vuelve a dejar y así la madre va quedando sola, pero no como una sola pobrecita víctima, porque ella es igual responsable porque ella maneja el poder incluso de echar al padre a un lado, ¿ok? Y en una investigación que yo hice como parte de mi tesis doctoral, fue transcribir y traducir, bueno, sí, transcribir entrevistas de clientes que habían tenido terapeutas hombres y ellos admitieron que en el fondo, porque vamos a estar claros, todo el mundo desea tener un padre, es parte natural de una familia. Y todos ellos pensaron que en el fondo estaban buscando una figura padre en ese terapeuta hombre. Entonces, esto deja en evidencia que es importante tener claro la investigación de tipo antropológica aplicada a la clínica, porque todas estas cosas son aspectos a tomar en cuenta a la hora de establecer el enfoque centrado en la persona. Yo diría que cualquier enfoque terapéutico, pero en este caso me interesa y es mi objetivo el enfoque centrado en la persona. Entonces, bueno. Well, someone is asking if, well, someone is interested in my research, and someone is asking me if I think if different kind of researchers have to be created. Bueno, that's in English, but
Yeah. Were you
someone is
responding
asking,
to the question there, Igua, about would these findings be applicable for other Latin American cultures? And
yeah,
could you say some of that in English
okay,
as well? That'd be great.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Well, these the kind of research that we have been working on have been qualitative research, and we have been using mainly live storytellings in a very particular way, like the person who is in charge of the research team, the, the team of research, is have been working for almost 30 years in this kind of research. And for him, who is, by the way, Dr. Alejandro Moreno, is very renowned and well internationally known researcher. He's social psychologist. He's not a clinical psychologist, but we have a team where we have social psychologists, clinical psychologists, anthropologists, people who work with his brain. Well, anyway, and he went to a particular poor neighborhood in order to study the popular Venezuelan person from he we believe is the typical common Venezuelan person. And he for him it's very important what he has called the prehistory. It's not the kind of Ferrarotti life storytelling way of doing it. He instead, Dr. Moreno instead went to this neighborhood to live with the people at this neighborhood and share the same kind of food they eat. He dressed the same way they did, and he became part of the people of this place. And he worked with the life stories of people that he was sharing and exchanging experiences for quite a bit. So these are people that he took in consideration as a sample, well, sort of way of saying it, as subjects, or he he would say the people that I share my research with,
Yeah.
because we build the life storytelling. We don't listen to someone who says the story. We uh, we say that we create the story in a kind of Buberian relationship where we create the relationship, and as a result we have a story. Okay, we also say that we can have the story of one person, and we have the culture and the information of the values and the episteme from that one only person.
Mm.
We have done different kind of things to prove this, and we have this is more kind of methodological discussion, and but this is just an introduction to answer the question. We have gone through the uh, different kind of type of way in the same research to see if we come across with the same kind of results, and we have. But anyway, uh, what I mean in order to answer the question and not to give you more explanations around is the fact that I cannot say this is the same for the rest of the other Latin American countries, because we have studied the Venezuelan person. We as Latin Americans, I understand, may share values and way of seeing things, but um, I cannot overgeneralize our findings, because again, our goal is not building big theories of knowledge
Mm.
and over generalizing conclusions. It's just finding out, describing the phenomena in a very phenomenological way. And well, if it happens that someone wants to work with us and we if someone wants to share our experiences and going together with our findings, we will be more than glad to work together. But I mean, I'm not going to be that such a liar pretending that we
Yes.
have done something that can cover the whole Latin American reality.
Yeah. Like it's really important research, and you're being careful not to over generalize it too. And equal, because I know
Yeah.
the methodology is interesting and important in the research. It was really helpful to me though when you said a little bit more about how that works in Venezuela in terms of how people don't see themselves as distinct. You know, it's so different to my experience here in the UK. And could you say a little bit more about how someone might be experiencing that, what that might mean? Um, kind of,
You mean how people experience themselves as different?
yeah, and how they don't
Just,
experience that distinction. Um,
well, I mean, distinction doesn't mean different.
mm,
And when we work about distinction, like Enrique Dussel, the Argentinian philosopher, who is now Mexican because he had to move to Mexican because of his ideas, I believe, to Mexico. Um, I mean, you can perceive yourself uh, different, but different within the same culture doesn't mean the same as distinct. Okay, because distinct means that you perceive yourself as an individual, with an individual self. But we might perceive ourselves different among ourselves, but different doesn't mean still as individuals.
mm. So you were
My
yeah, you were describing that in the way that I might think, oh right, I need to go to the shops and get something. I will do that. I will do that on my own. I won't,
Oh, okay,
but it could be really different in the
yes.
Venezuelan culture
Oh,
for.
well, yes. For the ones like me who has had the experience of going abroad and studying abroad, I can talk about many things. Like, um, for example, we have the big tendency of reaching things the easiest way. The easiest way, the better that is. I mean, it is not that I'm against easy things, but culturally, that's how Venezuelans are. And in my way, the way I've been raised in my family and the way I've seen abroad, but I mean, we know that we need to fight sometimes very hard for what you have. But this is only probably the 20% of the population who is getting into modern era.
Yes. So that like there's some population who kind of contemporary with what's going on,
Yes.
that kind of fast-paced development that's around the globe, and you're saying there's another part of the population that wouldn't see themselves as different from their family or their friends. They would always need to be with or describe themselves as I'm my father's son, or
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Uh, I'm not Iguaraya.
Mm.
If I go to a place, uh, I may have all my uh, qualities and capabilities and all the good things that I may have, but I'm Dr. Morales' daughter. And it's very hard for people. Uh, for example, I remember 27 years ago when I started teaching at the university, I went to the contest. I submitted all my documents and my diplomas and my studies and all of that. And well, I won the position. And I when I started teaching at the university, people looked at me and say, "Hey, there, Dr. Morales is going there." And excuse me, I'm not Dr. Morales' daughter. I'm Professor Morales, who had the position, who obtained the position because of her degrees, studies, and all of that. So, well, that's the way it is. And it's very hard for people not to see each other like that,
Yeah.
because that's the way it is.
Yes. So for you and your experience, and I guess in your travel, you felt you had have that experience of distinction, Professor Morales, different from how other people would see you. And
It was a shock for me. It was shocking
mm,
because I remember that almost every hospital that I go here, probably I'll be recognized.
mm,
But when I went to work at Harvard UCLA Medical Center, when I was working on my internship, um, sometimes I looked at these very big, famous people, and I looked at them, and they looked at me, and I said hi, and I felt like kind of isolated
okay.
and in disgrace because I realized that no one knew me.
Mm,
Of course, at the end, it went nice for me because I liked my job. I well, I worked hard, and well, I had a very nice time studying abroad. But I have to admit that at some points I felt like, I mean, what am I doing here?
yeah.
Am I going to be dragged? Or am I going to be able to be standing up and show what I'm capable of?
Mm. So a real experience of distinction when there's no one there who knows you. So you are there on your own presenting.
Yes,
Yeah. And a real culture shift from
yes,
what you've been used to. And
yes.
yeah.
So I'm going to start translating back again in Spanish.
Yes, please, Iqua, thank you.
Ok. um, bueno, todo esto comenzó. eh, well, I was reading the questions. Todo esto comenzó porque alguien de ustedes preguntó si yo podía generalizar los resultados que teníamos en Venezuela hacia las culturas latinoamericanas. Y yo estoy diciendo que sería muy pretencioso de mi parte pretender que eso es así. La mayor parte de las investigaciones han estado desde hace mucho tiempo conducidas por el doctor Alejandro Moreno, quien es un psicólogo social. Y él para hacer esta investigación la hizo a través de historias de vida. Y estas historias de vida, para hacerlas, él se mudó a un barrio popular de Caracas, una ciudad de la capital, para vivir con ellos, compartir con ellos, comer lo que ellos comían, vestir como ellos vivían y compartir el mismo horizonte hermenéutico. De modo que él fuera parte de esa episteme y para él fuera mucho más sencillo identificar los núcleos de sentido que salían de esas historias de vida. Por supuesto, para él es importante incluso, eh, él dice que él con estudiar la historia de vida de una sola persona es suficiente porque todos los elementos de la cultura, de una cultura en particular, están contenidos en una sola persona. Es decir, no es la misma concepción de historias de vida que tiene Ferrarotti, en donde ellos recurren a saturaciones de categorías y todo esto. No es así. En este tipo de historias de vida, lo que importa son los significados que salen de la historia de vida. Además, él tiene algo muy importante. Él habla de una prehistoria y él no escoge a la persona con quien va a compartir la historia de vida al azar o nada de esto. Él solamente escoge a alguien que sea característico, que represente al venezolano popular. Y de allí alguien que haya estado compartiendo un rato largo con él, de forma tal que haya
Igwa, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I think your video has just got stuck. Um, yep. Okay. So just
alguien
the
que...
oh, Igwa, I'm
Yeah,
not sure. Can you hear me just now?
yes, I do.
Just the last couple of sentences we've missed because the video got stuck here. Would it be
Okay,
okay if you were to say those again, please?
yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Entonces, las historias de vida como Alejandro las propone no es el tipo de Ferrarotti en donde se trabaja sobre la base de saturación de categorías. Él habla incluso de que una sola persona es suficiente para estudiar los elementos culturales de esa cultura. E incluso habla de una prehistoria, es decir, de la importancia de establecer una relación con la persona a quien se le toma la historia de vida. Porque para él, al igual que es una relación, si la historia de vida es co-creada, no sale la historia de vida. Y esto es un problema metodológico o una discusión metodológica, pero sin embargo la utilizo como una introducción para explicar que sería muy pretencioso de mi parte poder sobregeneralizar estos resultados al resto de los países de América Latina. Es muy probable que hayan algunos elementos en común con la población latina por el hecho de que pues, pertenecemos a un bloque importante de manera de ser y de pensar, pero no estaría segura si es exactamente igual. Entonces, nuestra investigación además no ha tenido nunca como objetivo hacer teorías macroscópicas, ¿no? Ha sido más bien describir la fenomenología de lo que sucede en nuestra cultura. Pero lo que sí quiero que dejar en claro es que igual o no, generalizable o no a otras culturas de América Latina, lo importante es entender, para tampoco salirme del foco del tema que nos trae hoy, es el hecho de que es importante estudiar la cultura, la episteme de nuestra población, porque empatía es importante, pero la manera en cómo logramos establecer la relación y la empatía va a ser diferente tomando en cuenta los elementos culturales de nuestros clientes. Well, I just finished translating.
Thank you, Igwa. Thank you. There's a question that's just, I think it's kind of gone up past the top of the chat room, or a comment that I just want to catch because it feels important in what we're discussing, and it's just catching that difference. If the therapist, as a therapist, I'm know that I really appreciate when someone asks me, or when I'm the client, John, how do you feel? What's it like in your life? So I might ask that question as a therapist because I know it's important to me as a client. But I think what you're shining a light on for us, really importantly, Igor, is that that might be really different for my client. The client might not even kind of have a sense of what that means. We're kind of.
Well, for example, uh, I know Dr. Rogers wouldn't have gone ever to a client's party, for example.
To a client's party?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Here, you have to be really careful about it because it might not going might, I'm not saying as a rule it will, but it might jeopardize your therapeutic relationship.
If you don't go, is that?
Yes.
Oh, how interesting. Okay.
Remember how important relationship in terms of the way we perceive relationships.
Mm. So are you saying then the therapist then becomes part of the client's identity, part of who they see themselves are as? Yeah.
It's because
That sounds so important. I kind of want to say to you, you need to translate that right away. It's so important, but maybe you want to say some more in English first, or yeah, I don't know.
well, John me está preguntando eh, cómo podría verse esto de la relación con el terapeuta y si el cliente puede preguntarle cosas al terapeuta sobre él. Y yo decía que yo nunca vi que Rogers, por ejemplo, asistiera a una fiesta de cumpleaños de sus clientes, pero aquí eso puede perjudicar la relación si tú realmente no vas. No estoy diciendo que eso de por sí la va a perjudicar, pero eso en algunos casos podría perjudicarla. Y eso es porque es parte de cómo la persona se percibe a sí mismo y la manera en cómo la persona interpreta la relación. ¿Ya?
Thank you, Igwa. Thank you. That sounds so important. Like what we do with the boundary is an important question, but to understand that we have become part of that person's identity in a way that I wouldn't have. I wouldn't see my therapist in this as part of my identity in that way. You know, obviously an important
Yes.
part of my.
Yes. We therapists become part of the relationship, the net of relationships, the way they perceive relationships are. Nosotros como terapeutas nos convertimos en parte de la red de relaciones y la manera y pasamos a formar parte de la manera en cómo los clientes definen sus relaciones.
Yeah, so there's such an important question here about empathy and our ability to transport ourselves into the world of the other and to really understand that is not the same as ours. Yeah.
Yes, a very well trained therapist in Venezuela would need to identify the very fine line between the empathy as a natural process of the therapeutic process and what is part of the belief systems and the relational identity of our clients. You can, I mean, I'm aware that it's very hard for us because we can easily get stuck in a big disaster if we don't learn how to identify that fine line. And that is why I've been very interested in researching these kind of issues.
Yeah. Yeah. So that yeah, that sounds such an important kind of area, relational identity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how that might differ. You know, a Scotsman here who's come out of Glasgow and all that that means, and someone else in Greece, someone in Venezuela, our relational identity and how we understand ourselves in relation to another.
Now, I would invite people to research on their culture and the way culture impacts the clinical or the counseling kind of work.
Yeah. Yes, an under-researched
Yes,
area.
yes,
Yeah. There was a comment earlier about okay, different cultures, do they need different research paradigms? I'm wondering if you had any thought. I mean, we're getting back into methodology, so
Well, I don't think it's a matter of paradigms because my personal point of view is that I mean is that you can have one paradigm with different sides, and you can work in different ways to. I mean, you can have different research methods to research on the same thing
mm,
at the same time.
mm,
I mean, it's not a matter paradigm, it's not a matter of techniques or research methods. To me, it's finding out about the nature of the research and the nature of the object of study
mhm,
and trying to find what fits the best to the case because you can almost study everything with everything.
yes,
I mean, I'm not going to fall in that very sterile discussion.
yes. Like
I mean,
it's about who is this person in front of me in therapy? Who are they? It's just as
yes,
important.
I mean, it's the nature of what you're going to study that will tell you what kind of side of the paradigm or paradigm or research method or technique. Okay, what what I do mean is that culture have their variants
Mm,
and differences and distinctions
yes,
and differences and distinctions and that need to be found out found out.
yeah. Oh, another interesting question in the chat room. I know I'm pushing questions at you, and we haven't done much translation in the last few minutes. Shall I ask you this one because I think it catches more of the kind of clinical question or dilemma, which is around. I mean, I think it's a fear that many of us therapists have. Are we creating dependency in our clients, and so is there something around dependency? Is it cultural? Does that question make sense to you, Igor?
Yes.
Hmm.
uh, Let me translate what I talked about before, and I will answer your question because I think it's a very, 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 very important and interesting question.
Thank you.
Um, Estaba hablando con John sobre el hecho de que alguien pregunta si en cada cultura necesitamos tener diferentes paradigmas para investigar. Y yo estaba diciendo que no quisiera caer en discusiones estériles acerca de metodología, porque pudiera hablar de diferentes paradigmas o pudiera hablar de diferentes lados del mismo paradigma. Yo creo que en conclusión nosotros lo que tenemos es que ser bien sensibles a la naturaleza del objeto que vamos a estudiar. Y es la misma naturaleza del objeto lo que, a mi modo de ver, nos va a decir qué paradigma, en el caso de que pensemos en paradigmas, o qué lado del paradigma, si es que vamos a pensar en uno solo, o qué método o qué técnica vamos a utilizar. De modo que lo que sí yo voy a hacer énfasis es en el hecho de que no importa qué paradigma, qué técnica, es bien importante identificar qué elementos de la cultura están influyendo sobre el trabajo terapéutico. Ahora John me está preguntando sobre que él entiende de que la manera en cómo hacemos terapia aquí, en términos de esa naturaleza relacional del venezolano y en terapia, y el miedo de la gente a pensar en una dependencia mientras que el trabajo con los clientes. So, ahora voy a responderle a John y regreso. Well, I understand, and I'm reading here that it says it's some an alcohol. It's asking, it's saying it sounds very much like dependency. Well, when I was saying that when working on a therapeutic kind of work, there is a fine line between identifying the client and his relational nature and uh, finding out about a process of dependency is very truthful, is very sticky, is very dangerous. It's very there is a very fine line, and it's very important to differentiate those kind of things. We need to be aware of besides the natural dependency that sometimes I am aware of some clients come up with, at, especially at the beginning of the processes, and that it is there. And here it comes some kind the kind of the things that I've been reading lately about giving the client whatever they need, instead of being apart, trying to keep yourself with a clear boundary. Well, beside that kind of issue where you may notice that at the beginning the client is trying uh, to find or to reach from you, like kind of Rogers in Gloria's session, where she asks him, "Can you give me the answer? Okay, can you answer me this?" And he, well, everybody knows that. But besides that dependency process that may be natural at the beginning, or besides the kind of willingness of the client to depend on you because of a personal issue of the client, it is possible, and we need to identify that very fine line between someone who is willing to depend on you and someone who is relating to you with that kind of relational nature relationship. And it's very hard, but we therapists need to be aware of that.
That sounds so clear, Igor. Thank you.
And that's what is so important. First of all, research about the culture, and second, share the same kind of seeing life, because you share with that person the same kind of values and way to see things. Like I wouldn't imagine, for example, um, so a therapist from whatever country, in Scotland, United States, Holland, or, well, having a client, a Venezuelan client. This therapist might be confused and might be thinking that he or she is trying to depend on them, on the therapist. It is not. It might be, but not all the phenomena is that. Okay,
So I might be
there is
formulating it
something,
in that way. I might think the
because
client is dependent.
there is something cultural underneath that this therapist might not be understanding. And if this therapist doesn't understand what is underneath, the empathic procedure process won't be reached by the therapist, or can misunderstand what is sensing, or might be confused Does it make sense?
It feels really clear, Igor, the way that you've described that. And I want to catch, and I think it's really important what you've also said. Like, you're also not saying dependence is a bad thing. Like that might be an important part of the relationship. When you're saying, well, what does the client need, and what it doesn't need to be that distance. But of course, however we react to that experience, if we think it's something else,
Yes.
or something else is happening and we're reacting to what we think is a kind of dependence, we're not meeting the client. They're not going to feel heard by us. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course, I do not mean that uh, other people from other countries cannot see and understand people from different countries. I mean, it's just a matter because I'm reading a question here and it's in English, by the way. But I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you need to be aware of the elements of the culture of this client in order for you as a foreign therapist to work better with them. Okay. Well, I'm going to go in Spanish. Um, Bueno, aparte de la dependencia natural y de repente hasta sana que nosotros podemos identificar en nuestros clientes, sobre todo al principio de un proceso psicoterapéutico, tal como lo he dicho al principio, la línea que divide la dependencia de una persona que quiere depender porque es dependiente y la necesidad de una persona de relacionarse con el terapeuta desde el punto de vista de la episteme relacional, por ejemplo, del venezolano, es muy fina. Y es por eso que es muy importante tener en cuenta la diferencia entre estas dos cosas. Porque el mejor ejemplo sería que, por ejemplo, un venezolano fuera entrevistado o tuviera como terapeuta a una persona, por ejemplo, de otro país nórdico, como Inglaterra o Estados Unidos o Alemania. Probablemente este terapeuta podría confundirse mucho en términos de establecer una empatía y va a ser muy difícil para él establecer una empatía dada la naturaleza relacional, porque especialmente si la persona quiere poner y mantener un límite en la relación y terapéutica y como cliente y terapeuta, en fin, esto pudiera representar un problema porque entonces el proceso de la empatía no va a ser llevado sanamente, la persona no se va a sentir comprendida, la otra persona no va a tener el chance de realmente ponerse en la posición del otro. Y no estoy queriendo decir que venezolanos solamente pueden ser entrevistados por terapeutas venezolanos y que personas de otros países no pueden tener clientes de otros países. No quiero decir eso. Es importante sí entender que si una persona va a ver a otra de un diferente país, es importante que se tengan bien en cuenta los elementos culturales de esa persona. Y por supuesto, entre más se comparta el mismo mundo de vida, pues más fácil será para ese terapeuta lograr el proceso de la empatía y establecer la relación. ¿Ok?
Thank you, Igor. Thank you. I'm just thinking we've got a little more than 20 minutes left, and we've thought through some of these questions kind of theoretically and practice, and just wondering maybe we could invite the chat room if they've got some questions that we've missed, or is there some other things that you would like to say just now, Igor? Or?
Well, I mean, I'm interested in answering as many questions as we have received, but I'm reading um, here in English different kind of questions and sentences about working with CBT.
Mm. Mm.
And something that is very interesting to me is the fact that I teach at the master graduate program, and at the master program, I supervise uh, my students' cases. And this is the kind of the program where you are not forced to follow a particular or a specific approach to work with people, clients, patients, however you call them. We respect that. But it's very interesting to me that some of them work with the cognitive behavioral approach. And culturally and socially, we have a particular and very interesting situation here in Venezuela right now. That is that I don't know if everybody abroad is aware of the political, especially I'm not going to talk about politics, but the social problems that we have, and we have a very insecure situation. We have lots of kidnaps and assaults, robberies, and these kind of things. And very once in a while, social unrests. And the other day I had this student bringing this case that she's working with this person, and this person developed an anxiety disorder. Okay, talking about DSM-5
Yes.
with all the full criteria, and this person, this client or this patient, didn't want to go to certain place at the beginning, and now this person didn't want to go out to some other certain places. I mean, he's generalizing the symptom.
Yes.
Okay, because she was afraid of being assaulted again.
Mm.
And my student was horrified because she was telling me, okay, this person have a cognitive distortion because she doesn't want to go out because she's afraid of going through the same kind of experience, and she thinks that the same thing is going to happen to her over and over again. And I'm aware that this is a cognitive mistake. But how can I explain to her that this is a cognitive mistake or distortion if that might happen to her again
Yes.
because of the social conditions that we are going through? And I just, I mean, I laughed and I told her, you know what? There is nothing better than being empathic
Okay.
because this person doesn't need you to tell her that she doesn't need to be afraid because it won't happen again to her, because this person doesn't need that you need to or need to teach her that she's making different kind of labels and automatic wrong belief because it may be true that it may happen to her again. And probably what she is really waiting is that you to tell her that you understand what she is going through, that it must be awful to be in her place, that going through that kind of experiences is something very sad and hopeless sometimes. So, I mean, I don't want to criticize cognitive behavioral uh, therapy because I think I need to instead criticize myself and the things that I do and the way I do things. But in terms of culture, because that's what we are going through, in terms of relationship and in terms of being empathic, I realized that this is another issue that we are dealing with. I mean, some things might not be um, mistaken beliefs, wrong beliefs, automatic bad beliefs, and sometimes you can it could be dangerous to someone if you instead disqualify the experience and not give the support that the person needs probably because there is nothing wrong in her fears.
Yeah. She is feeling scared in a scary environment. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound
Mm.
dramatically, but yes, it could be. It's hard.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. That just feels really important, Igor, to hear how things are culturally where you are and how it impacts people and the kind of need to be mindful of that when we're working. It's, yeah.
I don't need to teach people how wrong they are in terms of their beliefs.
Yes.
This moment, I just need to tell them that I understand it's hard, and well, at least we can work how to make things better for us and things like that. But in order for the person to feel safer, but how can we improve things? But in terms of psychologically, um, sometimes I don't need to teach anybody anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why sometimes cognitive behavioral therapy might not work. It's
Yeah.
really so what is going on socially.
Yeah. So to eliminate the social from the assessment is unhelpful.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially under certain conditions like the
Yes.
ones we have.
Yeah. Igor, did you want to say something of that in Spanish so we don't lose
Oh,
that?
okay.
Is it
Uh,
well? Because I also can see, I can. It looks to me like what you've said and what you've thought about is very meaningful to you as a person. To you're living in that social context too, and it touches you
okay.
deeply. Yes. So I don't want to push you to that translation with, and want to be
Okay.
mindful of.
Okay. Estamos hablando acerca porque seguimos hablando de la cultura, ¿no? Y hablando en términos de cultura, hubo algunos comentarios acerca de la terapia cognitiva conductual en el chat. Y yo estaba diciendo que, por ejemplo, yo doy clases en el posgrado de psicología clínica a nivel de la maestría y tenía una estudiante que este posgrado no tiene un enfoque particular, se le da a las personas la libertad de escoger el enfoque sobre el cual van a trabajar sus casos. Y tuve una estudiante que me traía que utiliza el enfoque cognitivo-conductual para trabajar. Y ella me estaba trayendo el caso de una señora que sufrió un asalto y por supuesto el síntoma se estaba generalizando y ya ella no solamente no quería ir al lugar donde la asaltaron, sino que además ella no quería ya incluso salir de su casa. Es decir, estábamos enfrente de una paciente con un trastorno de ansiedad diagnosticado a través perfectamente del DSM-5. Y ella me estaba diciendo, bueno, nosotros no es para nadie una mentira que nosotros a nivel social estamos pasando por realmente una crisis. Y ella me decía, bueno, yo le tendría que enseñar a ella a que por el hecho de que ella le haya pasado ese suceso una vez, eso no significa que le va a volver a suceder, porque estamos hablando de un error cognitivo o un pensamiento automático distorsionado, como lo llamamos o como lo llaman en la psicoterapia cognitivo-conductual. Pero, ¿qué pasa si yo le enseño a ella que ella no debe de tener miedo, porque no necesariamente eso le vuelve a pasar, y le volviera a pasar, porque en realidad los chances de que le pueda volver a pasar en términos de la crisis social que estamos viviendo es bastante alta. Entonces, ella me dice, yo no puedo enseñarle a que ella descalifique su experiencia porque ¿qué pasaría si en realidad ella no se protege porque le vuelve a pasar? Y yo me reí mucho y le dije, bueno, yo creo que la única solución que tienes es ser muy empática con ella, porque ella en este momento no está pidiendo que tú le enseñes a que ella está equivocada, que además pudiera no estarlo. Ella en este momento te está pidiendo que le digas que entiendes lo que está pasando, porque entiendes que vivimos en una realidad X, Y o Z y que debe ser muy difícil haber pasado por lo que ella pasó. Entonces, en función de esto, podemos darnos cuenta que incluso algunas veces, por ejemplo, en este caso, la terapia cognitivo-conductual no ayuda mucho en términos de la cultura y en términos de lo que socialmente, por ejemplo, los venezolanos estamos viviendo. Entonces, eso es difícil, pero hay que tener cuidado con eso. Podemos hacer mucho daño si tratamos de descalificar la experiencia de alguien, tratamos de enseñarle que está equivocado y que es un error cognitivo lo que está viviendo y no un temor real. ¿Okay? ¿Okay?
Thank you, Igwa. It just felt so important what you were saying there, both kind of for us to think about and for you personally. And so we've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay?
Um, I can, if anybody's watching the recording, they'll probably say, oh, "John and Igwa's eyes keep darting across," but that's because we were looking at the chat room, isn't it? We're really
Yeah.
interested to see what are people saying. I was wondering if there's any other questions that someone might want to write in Spanish that they might think, oh, I'd really like to express that to Igua in Spanish, because I know we had some questions at the beginning that way.
Yes, I'm not reading anything else in Spanish right
mm,
now.
mm, yeah. So it takes just maybe a little while for what we see to get out to the video window, and then I guess for everyone to think and
Well, I'm reading here how easy is to reach psychological services in here in Venezuela.
mhm.
And here he says, I am wondering what counseling approaches are most popular in Venezuela. Okay, how easy? I mean, you always find the two kinds of services, the private ones and the public ones. Like if you go to a public service, probably you will be seen, you will have an appointment for the first appointment for the next 2 months, and probably you will be seen every month or so. For private services, I mean, you can go depending on your resources, your financial resources. You can go as many times as you want. Well, and as good as once a week. But yeah, the public services they do exist, but they are full, they are packed. And in terms of approaches, I would say that the approach that is mainly used is the cognitive behavioral because of the influence of we have of the professors that have gone abroad and trained in the approach. um, I must say there are very few formal training institutes or schools or universities uh, dedicated to the center person approach, and that's why I founded the Venezuelan Institute for the Person-Centered Approach. Here, Rogers, and as I wrote in the Encounter newsletter, uh, Rogers visited Venezuela, invited over by the Salesians, the Catholic priests. And well, there is a group of people working in the person-centered approach from the 70s. That was when Rogers visited Venezuela, but there is nothing formal for training. Instead, we have very formal institutions for Lacanians and, of course, cognitive behavioral approach.
Mm. So in founding the institute, Igor, that's you're putting some energy into promoting the approach in Venezuela, promoting training.
Yes, that's what I've been doing. In fact, we have here in Maracaibo, which is where I am right now, which is the second most important city of Venezuela. Caracas is the capital city, and then Maracaibo, where all the oil comes from.
Okay.
And we have only one private university that teaches psychology, and I I organized this event to talk more in depth about the approach and the possibilities they have with WhatsApp. Of course, there are some kind of limitations right now. We have controlled exchange currency, and there is another issue because belonging to the WhatsApp means paying in euros or dollars, and sometimes it's difficult because first it's expensive because of the conversion, and second because you have only certain a limited amount of currency to be exchanged per year, and well, most of the people probably are not thinking that they need to spend money on the subscriptions, but some other maybe more important things for them. But well, the interest is growing up, and
Mm.
we need time to to work more on this. So get people more involved and interested. Sometimes I organize workshops with teachers from public schools, and so well, I mean,
It sounds like you're working very hard, Igor, to say, look, this is an important way of working with people, and there are international opportunities, but maybe not as accessible as we
yes,
might hope. But I guess you offering your time here tonight, free of charge, a lot of time. Well, I'm saying tonight. Now I'm locating myself in the UK. That's not. It's a real opportunity for us to kind of cross those barriers in a way that's financially accessible.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So I believe that WhatsApp needed to find out about the situation of the approach in some other countries
Mm.
because we need to work how to get some other people closer. I'm talking about WhatsApp. But on the other hand, on the other side, I can work as the link between WhatsApp and Venezuela
Yeah.
and some other Latin American countries.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So I can hear you thinking about well, it sounds like your role on the board. Like, how do we join together in a way that's maybe understood in terms of where the approach is developed in Europe and America, but is also is mindful of other cultures, and so that we can come together and have that
Yeah.
connection. Yeah, yeah. It's hard to believe an hour and a half has come and gone already. It's just flown by. Wow. Yeah.
Yes. Well,
And thank you for how hard you've worked today. I mean, I'm just
nice.
been, thinking and talking in Spanish and in English in of itself, I guess, is a hard work. So thank you. And yeah,
Well, I mean, I I really would like to say that for everybody who might be interested in what we are doing and the way we are doing, please, you have my organizational email address at the website, and I'll be more than glad to answer to your questions and whatever I can do within my reach. Please believe I would do it.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Igor. That's very, very generous. We really appreciate that. And it's such a contribution to the person centered approach across the world. It really is. In the event and you work on the board. So thank you. Yeah. And
Like always, John, it's really nice working with you. You are a very important resource for WhatsApp, helping us to organize all these kinds of events. And we'll hope to keep working together. Thank you very much, John. I
yeah.
appreciate all your help and effort and time.
Yeah, so that's lovely feedback, and we'd also like to extend that to everybody who's been with us online. We've really appreciated your presence around the world, and the generous comments and questions in the chat room too. And thank you to Sandra for holding that process with us. And
Yes, thank you, Sandra.
fantastic.
Okay, well, see you then. Uh, we hope to see you all in Argentina.
Yes, yes, for the yes, the PCE conference in Buenos Aires. Yes, and if not, then hopefully next month with Beth Frere on the WAPSEPC
Yes,
online
best friend,
event.
the one who is coming for our next online event.
Great.
Okay, bye bye. Bye, everybody.